Hi friends, it's Lauren Taylor. Welcome back to my craft room. I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm just going to have a little bit of fun today with some fandom. You know, I love my fandom sets, and this is from the Sassy Club. It's called Imagination, and it has the cutest little dragon ever. And I just wanted to play around with it and color it in and just kind of figure out the colors that I liked for this dragon. So today's card is relatively simple, but I wanted to color. And I also wanted to use an embossing folder. If you saw my video using some of the more recent Simon Hurley releases partnered with Spellbinders, there was an embossing folder called Quilt, and it really reminded me of the large sphere at this particular dragon's theme park. I don't want to say too much because I would like to make sure my friends at the Sassy Club stay friends at the Sassy Club. And so I'm going to stamp my little dragon. I'm using Sassy Club's Onyx Black ink, which is my favorite ink for coloring with alcohol markers. I did stamp it twice, but honestly, one stamp, it was beautiful. But it's just habit to stamp twice. I'm using my Ohuhu art alcohol markers. I prefer Honolulu B as the marker of my choice. I like that it has a brush end and a nib end. But I do have some of the A's where it has a chisel instead of the nib. I'm going to be using purples for most of my dragon. I'm using P4 as the dark tone and P3 as the light tone. So I showed you how I colored in my little character's tail, and it was the same basic process for the rest of the body, but I thought I would show how I colored his face in. I know there's lots of different crevices and different ways to add shadow, so I wanted to make sure I showed some of the more difficult areas of coloring. You could definitely bring in a third shade. I haven't found a third shade I really like with P3 and P4, so I just use these two colors together, and I really like how this turned out. It's a beautiful, vibrant, like violet, pinky purple, and it's my go-to two colors for purple. Once I'm all done coloring in his face, we'll bring out the pink for his stomach. And for that, I'm going to be doing two shades as well. I do find myself choosing colors what I only need two shades for more than three lately. So my darker shade is R190 and the lighter shade is R120. So just starting with adding in that shadow and then bringing in the lighter tone to color in the rest of the area. Doing my best to make sure there's a nice blend between the two. I use the same two colors for mouths almost always, R12 for the tongue and R8 for the inside of the mouth. And then the rest of my dragon is an orange color, so I'm using my go-to orange combination of two colors, which is Y10 and Y4. So just coloring in the rest of the little details on my dragon's little kind of nails on his hands and feet, the details on his tail, and I'll also color in his wings the same way how I colored in the details on the tail. And then I thought I would bring back in and show you how I colored the horns in, very similar to how I colored in the different segments of his stomach, just adding shadow to the bottom area of the horn and then bringing back in that lighter color to completely finish coloring in the rest. Oh, I did forget that I did color his eyes in with a different color. So after I use my go-to color for cheeks, which is R22, I'm bringing in Y010 as the lighter color for his eyes. And originally that's all I was going to do, but I wanted it a little more yellow. So I brought in Y030 just to darken up more towards the bottom of his eyes. I did have a picture up on my computer screen so I could use an actual photo of this fandom character for my color inspiration. Finally, I'm going to use my white gel pen to add in a little bit of highlights here and there, especially adding little dots on the cheek, which is my favorite thing to do. I just went with what made me feel happy when adding highlights, and it just gives it more of a cartoony look to me. I'm grabbing my Spellbinders scissors. These are my favorite for fussy cutting, and I'm just going to go ahead and fussy cut this guy out. There are not currently any dies for this set, but you can use a scan and cut, or maybe you just like fussy cutting. When I just have one image, I usually just fussy cut. It doesn't really bother me too much. I don't like fussy cutting when I have like 20 images to cut out. Then I will get out my mat for the scan and cut. I just think he's turning out so cute. So let's set him aside and we'll work on the rest of the details for the card. So here is the Spellbinders Geo Quilt with Simon Hurley 3D embossing folder, and as I was digging for some silver paper, I found this one that was an extra from when I when I embossed for that Spellbinders Simon Hurley Christmas video I did, I think last month or the month before, I don't remember, but it was an extra, so I didn't have to run it through my machine. I already had it ready to go, so that worked out really nice. I'm bringing out my nested circles from scrapbook.com, and I used one of the sizes to cut out a piece of light blue cardstock, and I'm just going to darken the edges a little bit with a blending brush and Blueprint Sketch in Distress ink. I have the smaller versions of all the Distress ink, so definitely going to just use it just along the edges, and I'm going to bring it back actually for some stamping as well, but that's just to give a little bit of dimension to that blue piece of cardstock and a little bit of shadow. I'm going to grab another product from Sassy Club. This is the Tiny World 6x6 paper pad, and I'm picking one of these rainbow stripes to work with. This is also why I decided to pick blue as the background circle for my dragon, so I can tie in all colors of the rainbow. I have almost everything on that stripe paper except for blue, so I'll have blue as the solid cardstock. So I used the circle that was the next size larger than my blue to cut out that striped piece of pattern paper, and I'm going to put that onto my embossed silver background. I fiddled around with different dies to figure out how I was going to stamp my sentiment, and I settled on using Lawn Fawn Simple Wavy banners, and I used the middle size and cut it out of some white cardstock. Since I have to fit my banner into a certain shape, I decided to die cut it first, and then I'm going to use my stamp and my MISTI to help me get that kind of curved. What's great about photopolymer stamps is that you can like curve them. So I tried to match the curve of that die, and I originally stamped it in black ink, as you can see here, but I'm going to change my mind later on in the video and wish it was in purple ink. So I'll restamp it in purple, but this is pretty much how I stamp my photopolymer sentiments onto a curved banner. So I have all my pieces now, and we could start gluing things together. Here's when I decided to add those star details. I felt like it needed a little something more. I was going to add some pops of color, but I thought the shine on that silver paper was plenty for this card. So I thought adding these little stars that come in the Imagination stamp set as details on the blue would just look really nice. So I stamped a few of the large and a few more of the small, just randomly around the edge of the circle. The way I add my dragon later, I will bring back another stamp of the small stars because there's this weird big open space, but you'll see that in a little bit. So I'm just going to use some adhesive to glue the blue circle to my rainbow stripe circle. When I die cut it out, I did my best to keep the darker purple towards the center in hopes that I'd get more colors to show up more, so more of the yellow and the pink. Since my dragon is very purple, I didn't really need a lot of purple. I wanted more of the other colors to show up, so just one dark purple stripe, and hopefully, I think I got them all at least twice of the other colors. I added some foam adhesive to the back of my dragon, and I'm just using my grid mat here to try to get my dragon centered while the stripes look straight. And then I went ahead and glued them to those circles. And here you can see that weird kind of open spot on that background. So I added one more star just to make it look still random, but yet a little bit more cohesive. So here is where I stamped that banner sentiment again. Luckily, I hadn't removed it from my MISTI, so it was pretty easy. I just die cut another banner and then used purple ink to stamp the sentiment that says, "Go with your figment." And I know that sounds kind of weird because it's by itself, but I'm going to stamp more on the inside of the card, which I know is very surprising for me. I don't stamp a lot on the inside of the card, but I will for this one. So now I'm going to assemble my card together. I have a top folding A2 card base out of some Solar White Nina cover stock. It's like the 100-pound super sturdy stuff. And I adhered my shiny embossed background to the card base using my super sticky glue, my big old tape runner. And I'm going to pop up my circle and my sentiment using foam adhesive. So you can see I use squares on the back of the circle and one of my 1/8 of an inch scrapbook.com adhesive strips on the back of my sentiment. I'm using my grid again to try to get my circle centered onto my card base, and I brought it down a little bit. It's not too high, so I can add my sentiment below it and it will look even left to right as well as even top to bottom. So that is how my card looks, but I wanted to stamp another sentiment on the inside so my sentiment sounds a little more cohesive. So again, I have Go With Your Figment on the outside, and then I'm stamping Figment of Your Imagination on the inside. So lining up my sentiment onto my white cardstock and then using that grid on my MISTI to make sure it's centered. I'll bring back in the purple ink and I'll stamp my sentiment. I guess it says Figment of Imagination. So anyway, and there was no your. So here is my overall card. It turns out so cute. So I have, again, Go With Your Figment and then Figment of Imagination on the inside. This little dragon is so, so cute. I was so excited when the Sassy Club released this stamp set. I hope you had fun coloring and creating a cute little fun fandom card with me today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!